we are again. It's a Techno Saturday. After a little bit of a break. After we did that all-day crazy multi-city events for 343 Studio. Sync. I think we kept it in sync for the most part. Who's in the chat today? Absent is here. Greetings. Nice to have you back. Luminous Cloud. Congratulations again on winning Live 11. Very nice. What's up, Martin Crockett? New Drexian. Cosmic J. Hello, Hank. Yes, let's have a nice lesson today. Live Society, what's up? F-Stop. Simple Sam. And hey, Max. Daniel Van Tyne. Acid Bat. Hey, May. Here we are. Might as well get going. What's up? How's it going? Here we are again. Back in the saddle. Ready to ride. And yeah, it was nice to get away last weekend. I had a reunion, 30-plus year reunion with the members of a band I was in back in the late 80s, early 90s. And Abe might have said something about it. One of y'all yesterday in Abe's stream called me Ska-way, and that made me think that Abe said something about my old band. Yes, I was in a ska band. I might have mentioned this in the past, that when I was in high school, into college, until I went to college, it kind of fizzled out after that when we all went our different ways, different colleges, different parts of the country. So yeah, that was a big part of my musical development, sort of learning how to play in a group and, you know, getting it going, creating our own sound, getting gigs, being part of a scene in Washington, D.C. That was a really amazing time. So needless to say, meeting up with those guys after so long and having a weekend together, we booked some studio time just to jam, not to record, just like in a practice studio. And I don't know, felt really good to play keyboards, to play live, to get away from the computer a little bit. Definitely not a Techno Saturday for me last weekend, but it was refreshing. It was good. Who else is in here? Actually, Elite 909, welcome. Elite 909 Force, actually. Travarsi is here. James Porch is here. And yes, Simple Sam, yes, of course, that's why he said Ska-way. That's very funny. Thank you. Right. So I was, honestly, my head's been a little, because of last weekend and just of other stuff going on in my life, I haven't, been working a lot on music in the last, on electronic music, in the last couple of weeks. So I was thinking, what am I going to do when I come back today? And I was, it's a techno day today. And I was just, sometimes I think about how to get started on tracks and look at kind of simple but effective ways to get going. And I like I've done this before, sort of like Detroit minimal / Rob Hood kind of style chord sequences, where it's kind of like you're step sequencing chords, doing parallel chords or whatever. And I was thinking about using Live's Arpeggiator in chord trigger mode to do stuff like this and then to create variations. So I got started on just a sketch with that a couple days ago. And then I think you guys can hear that in the background. Something like that. It didn't start out sounding like this. It started out sounding a little more straight ahead, and then it got weirder and weirder as time went by. And then this week, I became aware of the new device from Ableton, this Microtuner. And there was an article I read from Peter Kern about it. And I don't know, we've done a little bit on alternative scales and alternative tunings before. And I had already started with the sound I was working on that you just heard a little bit of, like changing the notes you hear, not by MIDI notes, but by small tuning changes and by filter resonance and key tracking of the filter and like these tiny little details to make it sort of sound like more than it is. So I was already sort of thinking about getting sort of out of a traditional tuning and creating notes and implying harmonies that weren't actually being played. So it was sort of a nice coincidence that this new device came out, so I started playing with that a little bit as well. So, sorry, I'm reading the chat here, and Live Society's talking about ska techno. No, we're not going to do ska techno today, even though I was just talking about being in the ska band. And there was, for a very brief moment, acid ska. Like in the UK, when acid house blew up, there was like acid everything. It wasn't just acid house. There was acid jazz, which wasn't really acid. It was just a way to, it was like alternative new jazz, dance jazz at the time, mixed with house and other things like that. And then there was someone actually made acid ska. So ska techno could be a thing. And I suppose, you know, if you think about how there's dub techno with reggae influences, that, yeah. You might, hey, if you want to give it a try. Okay. So enough about ska. So anyway, that's where we're at today. Where's that article? There's this article that I was reading. I cannot find. Where did it go? Sorry, guys. I made an extra scene here to show you what I was talking about, and, and now it's not here. Oh, there it is. Okay. Right. So this is the article I was reading from Peter Kern, and it's pointing out some things about alternative scales and tunings and how there's a little bit of a critique here of, did I say critique? Critique here about how Ableton is presenting this microtuner. And I'm of two minds about this. Like, if on the one hand, you know, people assign emotional value and cultural value. There's a lot of cultural value in scales and tunings. Different types of music around the world have different ways of, you know, doing melody and harmony that are away from typical Western, sort of dominant Western music theory. So, you know, there's definitely people out there that feel very strongly about having representation for different types of music, different types of music systems, different types of music theory, different scales, different tunings, and what those mean culturally, right? And I'm all for that. And that's kind of what this article talks a little bit about. And, you know, this device, Microtuner from Ableton, is kind of presenting these ways of dividing up scales without giving it any kind of cultural or historical or even just plain music theory context, right? And that's great. I think this is a really good conversation to have. But on the flip side, I also feel like there's no like special frequencies that are like more special than others. And like tunings are also just arbitrary, and it comes down to what you find interesting and what you respond to sort of emotionally and mentally, right? Like if it is interesting or makes you feel a certain way, it doesn't matter whether it's a particular system that existed before or a particular, you know, unless you're representing yourself, you know, sort of culturally in a specific way. I think you can just be totally arbitrary about notes and tunings and frequencies. And I think it's okay to look at something like this device just in and of itself, right? So anyway, those are just some thoughts I was having about it. And, you know, we're going to look at it a little bit. Right. So where did we go? before we get into Ableton Live and making some music, and I'm going to stop sort of pontificating about tuning. And I don't know, let's check in the chat and see what you guys think about it as well. I will, of course, mention 343 TV is brought to you by 343 Labs and 343 Studio, our new hub, our new online community that you can be a part of. I mentioned earlier we had our Synth event a couple weeks back, and it went great for it was a very ambitious thing that we did, doing this all-day multi-city global thing, and it you know, barring a couple of tiny technical hitches, I think we did pretty well, and I know hopefully some of you I know some of you here were participating in that, so thanks a lot. And you know, it was sort of introducing what we're doing with 343 Studio. If you haven't checked it out already, take a look at the links here, see what we're doing, check out what's on the website. Of course, we have our Discord you can join if you haven't already. And of course, we have a giveaway, which this week is a free 343 Pro session of your choice. So there's a link pinned at the top of the chat. Go ahead and enter. Give us your email. We'll give you a chance to win, and we'll announce it shortly. All right. How are we doing? It's 1:15. I think it's about time to make a little music. I'm going to keep an eye on the chat. And Absent has a couple of comments, or a comment about tuning. Go to the Arabian scales and you've got every micro frequency. Well, that's the thing. That's sort of what we're talking about, is like how tunings are in different scales and different cultures, and how important they are, right? Or it's, you know, and recognizing that. But then the flip side of the coin is you can do whatever you want with frequencies, and if it sounds cool, right? As long as you're not misrepresenting yourself culturally, I think it doesn't matter. Cool. Ah, yes. Good reminder, Max. Thanks very much. Next week, we've got a couple of pro sessions happening, and I will be doing my stream on next Saturday an hour earlier. So it'll be 12 p.m. Eastern time as opposed to 1 p.m. So just, you know, keep that in mind. If you're getting notifications from YouTube, you will be notified. And of course, you know, any social media going out this week will give the earlier time. But just so you know, so you don't miss out next week, we'll be on at 12 instead of 1. Nice. Cool. James Porch says, even classical bros argue about temperament, right? I don't think anybody should argue about it at all. Like, if you like how it sounds in one tuning, do it. There is no better or worse, right? It's all arbitrary. You can do it all mathematically, you know, just dividing up a number of steps between frequencies, whatever you want. If it sounds cool, it is cool. That's the way I feel about it, honestly. Nice. So that said, let's jump back to where I started before I got into this whole micro-tuning device and thoughts about tuning and scales. And what have we got here? So this isn't micro-tuning. We're not there yet. This is me talking about, or thinking about, sequencing groups of notes rather than single notes, using Live's Arpeggiator, using chord trigger. And I didn't start here. Actually, how did I start with this? I don't want to break this. Let's duplicate it and then take a look. A lot of times when I play around with arpeggiators, I'll just play kind of semi-randomly on a keyboard with a pattern going with the arpeggiator, and then just sort of see what happens. So, you know, it's funny. You can see I played all these, you know, for however many bars, just fooling around while there was a beat going, and I ended up only using this tiny little quarter note plus an eighth note loop with very little going on. But just to get some perspective, let's see, you know, how did this sound in the beginning? Let's even take this a step back. There's a couple things going on in the arpeggiator which I wasn't doing in the beginning. can hear, I'm just fooling around. And that was going on with this. So not playing big chords, just playing, 2 notes at a time and kind of going back and forth, high, low. There I went with the triad. And any of these could potentially be the beginning of a track, I think. And I was just trying to get like a certain vibe. Go over here. I'm playing tritones. I'm playing like augmented fourths or fifths, which is something you hear commonly in darker techno, for sure. You'll hear like minor ninths and seconds and augmented intervals, and it gives it the kind of dark, twisted, or... Alright, so you get the idea. It's tense. It's got tension. Alright, so that was how I started. If I were to do that again... Oh yeah, the MIDI, is the MIDI working? I should have checked this before. All right, so I was gonna hit the MIDI keyboard, but the keyboard is not going. So, all right, let's do this better. All right, there we go. So just playing. See what I'm doing, right? And just to point out, for those of you who aren't usually using chord trigger mode, it's not, normally you play a group of notes and it breaks them up into a melody. In this case, it's playing it's just repeating the notes that I play. So I can play a chord and it'll just break it up into 16 notes or 8th notes, or that's what's happening. All right, I'm like, why isn't it playing more notes? I realized I had restricted the polyphony on this instrument to 3. Let's put it back to 8. All right, wow, not having the keyboard working is really annoying. All right, you can hear there's some other notes kind of going in there from the MIDI that I recorded foolishly. All right, so anyway, just a little bit of a backtrack to talk about what I mean. Let's get rid of that and go back to what sounds good. All right. Live Society says, great tension. This is definitely the tense vibe that we're going for. The kind of thing that you can let it play for a while and let it transform kind of slowly. So that's sort of the next stage of this, is I got the pattern that I wanted. There's also, the steps, the transpose, and the distance here. If I get rid of... That's what's really happening, which also sounds really good. And then I was playing around with the distance and the intervals being transposed up, and I settled on 11. Which all of a sudden jumped out as being, that's complex, right? Now, speaking of complexity, there is some stuff going on in the synth that's also kind of adding to this. Right? It's not that complicated of a sound. Basically, I'm just using a sine wave with some FM. just moving through these basic shapes, going from sine wave to square wave that gives it a little more intensity. But what really is giving it the complexity I like is how the filter is working. You can kind of see that the filter frequency is jumping out and up and down with the different notes. Let's open this up so we can see it better. All right, so I've got the filter resonance and the filter frequency note tracking the note. So this is what it sounds like without, which also sounds cool. So I've got it tracking the pitch with a negative amount, so when the notes are higher, the filter is lower. And then I've got the filter resonance boosted when the notes go higher. And there's the opposite. If I go negative, you hear the resonance boosted when the low notes are playing. And just playing with this amount is like, if you listen to that and you're tripping out, or let me rephrase that, you can trip out on it. And sort of like the relationship of the frequency and the resonance and the notes is changing all the time. And then if you change the center of frequency here that's being modulated around, you can hear different notes happening because the resonance will stick out and it'll add a sine wave basically. And it's like it's playing a new melody in the middle of that. And it's not in tune. This is where I started thinking about tuning. The resonance is being boosted. It's creating a sine wave at a frequency that's not necessarily exactly in tune with the notes. And it's creating chords, extra chords on top of that. Right. So that's kind of the bulk of the sound. I mean, there's a little bit of envelope modulation, but mostly it's what the key tracking is doing. So it's totally dependent. The sound of this is totally dependent on the notes, the MIDI notes, and how high or low they're going. And if I change what's going on here, it's going to change what the filter's doing. In terms of distance, anyway. Four steps, and it's added so much extra complexity. It sounds way more complex than you would typically think an arpeggiator would sound. And again, it's I'm giving it multiple notes, and we're doing that key tracking thing. Another thing I was playing around with is the retrigger, which is something I like in Live's Arpeggiator, where you can sort of restart the sequence according to a beat or a note length. That's set to 3/16 now. It's getting a little bit more rolling now, a little more continuous, and switching between that and turning it off is a nice variation that I can use in the arrangement. Let's see what you guys are saying about this madness. James Borch says the rhythm is pretty. Thank you. Absent says the reverb is a bit too much. Well, I forgot to talk about the reverb. It's only on one note. I put reverb on it and I was like, there's too much reverb, so I put it on just one note. But you think it's still too much. You can get rid of that. No more reverb. Absent. And yes, I mentioned already that how much I love that kind of Rob Hood vibe, that 90s Rob Hood vibe. Yes, Sean Hodgson, it is a little bit of Rob Hood. May says a galloping kick rhythm could bring even more cool driving hypnotic vibe to this. And I did think about that, like having more bass energy, right? I am not sure about this, but I already have a heavier transient with some reverb on it, which isn't, not quite rolling, but I'm not sold on this 100%. It was just an idea. Okay, so that's pretty much that sound. And, you know, it is what it is. It's a track starter, I would say. Significant modulation going on in this sound is an envelope controlling how much FM there is, giving it a bit of percussive kind of brightness at the beginning. Now, I just see this comment from Functor. Has anyone tried the new Microtuner live? Yes, we are about to try that. We're about to look at that. I literally just started looking at it yesterday and this morning. It is brand new to me. Mind the reverb, just on that one note. Maybe it's just too loud. Right, not sure about that. And the drums are still a work in progress, obviously. It's just keeping time right now. I'm really focusing on the main synth patterns that I'm thinking about today. Let's get rid of that. Or not get rid of, but let's... a break from the bass energy for a minute. Alright. Then Colt says, sounds good, getting ready for a stab. Yeah, you know what? I did think about whether I wanted some kind of big stab, energetic stab, or I came up with kind of a dark sort of a impact sort of a sound, something like this. So maybe not exactly what you were thinking, but I'm trying to keep it dark and spacious. So that's just a sound I made quickly with Operator. Really simple sound. It's just square wave modulated by sine wave, detuned a little bit. There's some spread on there. The phaser trigger is off, so every time you hear it, the stereo image is a little bit different. You hear it kind of moving around. That with too much reverb on it. Not just an idea again. We're sketching today. Ian McCoy says, stick an LFO on the wavetable frequency. Okay. So I was already thinking about automating this. Oh, okay. Enough of that operator step. I was already thinking about automating this. But you're right. I actually could easily just have it sweeping up and down slowly and then just forget about it. Although I probably want to play with this in the context of the arrangement, like make it more intense, less intense as the energy progresses. But let's do it because you suggested it. Turn the re-trigger off, slow it down a lot. Make sure I've got the oscillator 1 position selected, and let's give that a little bit of movement. Sure, why not? It works. Maybe I don't like the whoop, whoop kind of reverb. We'll see. I like how the hybrid reverb has a quantized pre-delay. club's toilet is this an impulse response from? I want to know. Berghain? I'm okay with that. A little more energy from the hi-hats. It's old school sounding in a way that I like. I like the idea of an overblown 808 running through saturation, which is exactly what's happening here. Ame says that stab would be best used sparingly in the arrangement. Absolutely. Yeah, in this stage of development, anything that's happening too often is just because it's looping in the session view, not because that's how I'm going to use it in the arrangement. And yes, it needs to be in tune, as Absent says. This needs to be played on the right pitch. But anyway, we're talking about tuning. Let's give our ears a break for a moment. It's already halfway through the show. And anyway, I'm having fun. I'm already this is just so mental. Like this kind of hypnotizing. Is it hypnotic techno nowadays? Is that what we call it? It definitely sucks you in, and it's like, all right, I need to reset. This is Selway Techno Saturday, brought to you by 343 Labs, 343 TV, brought to you by 343 Labs and 343 Studio now, which is our new growing online program that you can join. 3 tiers, free, and then a couple of paid ones. If you pay a little more, you get a little more. If you want, you can get. I think it's worth it. I'm really enjoying doing one-on-one feedback sessions, feedback and mentoring, basically. So if you pay for the full deal monthly, you can get access to almost all of the instructors from 343 are in this now. We all take turns doing feedback sessions, mentoring. We also have our collab sessions, which is actually available on the second tier as well. And you can get, they're like mini private lessons, and we can listen to your tracks, go over, if you might be at getting stuck at a certain stage, or maybe you're at the mixing stage, or even just starting, like getting feedback on your ideas to help you move forward. And then, the mentorship sessions are anything about music, basically, anything related to it. If you have questions about how do I get my music out there, should I get distribution? What kind of plugins do you like? Whatever, any questions you have. We could also do feedback in the mentorship sessions. That happens sometimes. Just, get these 15-minute blocks, and I think it's worth it. And I really enjoy doing it. So, if you guys, want to work a little more closely and not have to like pay out for a whole course or, a lot of money per hour for, regular private lessons, this could be good. Anyway, just throwing that out there. That's what we do with 343 Studio. You have the link here. You can check out more, see the details. We have, in addition to that, all of our pro sessions going on. There's 2 pro sessions next weekend. One of them on Saturday is the reason I have to stream a little earlier that day. One is being run in Spanish only, right? And it looks like some really cool content. So definitely check that out. Our giveaway this week, if you haven't entered already, is for a pro session of your choice. So good timing, right? Win a pro session, and you got 2 to choose from next week. Well, okay, maybe only 1 if you don't speak Spanish. Cool. Let's check in with the chat a little bit. Absent says about 343 Studio, I guess. That's nice. I'm always stuck. Probably the reason I don't release anymore. Absent. Yeah, finish some tracks. I know you're posting on Instagram all the time, all these little grooves, and I know DJs have played your stuff. So I don't know. Let's talk. Let's get you moving. Cool. Max is reminding us tomorrow, mixing masterclass with Marian Haffenstein on 343 Studio. There is so much going on. There's so I don't even know. I can't even keep track with all of the new stuff that we're doing. Nice. James Porch is asking if I'm using the 808 behind me. No, I mean, this is the Behringer RD8. I am long overdue for a hardware session. I've been thinking about it. I've been putting it off. I'm honestly just been a little bit lazy about hooking up all the hardware. There's so much I can do. There's so much I can do with this, right? Just, I've got everything at my fingertips. Not that I love using hardware, and it's definitely, it's a whole different vibe. But I must admit, my comfort zone and where I am most productive is in the box, right? I can do anything I need. Everything I need is right there. Nice. Even more. Okay, Max Wild. Good that you're here to remind me of all the stuff that's going on here. Hannes Beeger on Monday. Kira on Friday. Ernesto Romeo on Saturday. All in person, right? So we're actually, we got the two, Hannes is in Berlin, and we have the other two in New York here in person, and they're going to be streamed. Not publicly, though. You got to sign up, right? Private stream. And, sorry, yeah, Max is correcting. Cora on Friday. I love it. Max, I love it, how much we're doing and how things are going. So, all right, enough chit-chat. Thanks, James Porch, in the box sounding very good. Let's get to talking about, all right, the other thing today. The one was, using the chord trigger mode in Arpeggiator and thinking about in the synth how the notes, key tracking, right? On the sound design and synthesis side, thinking about the notes you're playing as modulators, not just notes, right? So that's another thing that was going on with that sound. And it was changing how the filter was tracking the notes, was giving and boosting the resonance. It was giving different overtones, different frequencies, in addition to the notes that are being played in the MIDI. And then that opens up some possibility for, with detuning, and the key tracking isn't necessarily chromatic exactly. So it is a little bit of like playing with, it's like baby steps towards alternate tuning when you change the key tracking. You can do it for pitch too. All right. But, let's get into looking at this guy, this Microtuner. So this is the new device, the controversial, according to some, device from Ableton, the Max for Live device. If you have the suite, you can just download it in your packs. And there are more powerful devices that do tuning and that are great for designing and modifying scales and doing different tunings and things like that. This one, I feel like it does kind of simplify and make a little bit more accessible the concept. It's a nice interface. It's easy to use. It's not overly complicated. And even just with the few built-in scales, you can import custom files. Scala files can be imported into this, and you can have any existing scale from any type of system, whether it's a, culturally relevant scale system or just something arbitrarily created or something mathematically created. It can import all of those. It can generate, sort of semi-randomly generate tunings and that you can apply. And it uses either MPE, right? So, MPE allows you to tune individual notes apart and use expression on individual notes. If the plugin is compatible with that, it will send out MPE and change the tunings for each note. Or if you don't have an MPE synth, like for example, I'm just trying it here with analog, you can use pitch bend. So with MPE off, it's sending out pitch bend. And you need to make sure that the pitch bend amount in the Microtuner is the same as the pitch bend amount range in the synth, right? So analog goes up to 12 semitones. So in order for the tuning coming out of here to be accurate, you have to set the pitch bend amount at 12. That way you get, you know, what you see is what you get, is what you hear. Cool. All right, so I created, all right, there's just too much reverb on that kick. Fix that. All right, just in the background a little bit. Just there keeping time. And, you know, this is me, instead of using a step sequencer or an arpeggiator to do a repetitive pattern, I just sort of semi-randomly drew some notes. You know, originally I started out with pretty much just a default analog, and it's just doing a plucky sawtooth. A little bit of envelope mod on the filter. And I was playing around a little bit with sync modulation with the tone, but, you know, nothing fancy here. I wanted to be able to go from really short and plucky to full with a longer release. But I also wanted to be able to have this tone, but have it be tight and plucky again. So I decided to use a synced LFO. It's just, you know, sawtooth wave, 16th notes. So I can do anything with the envelope, and it's still going to keep doing that. How does it sound with the big beat? All right. That's a start. Going back to the whole sort of chord trigger idea, in this case, I'm not using the arpeggiator and playing chords. I'm just putting in a one-note melody, but then I obviously can turn that into chords by adding MIDI notes to that with the chord effect. And so this is just triads. I think we're back in Rob Hood world now. A little loud. And thinking about key tracking again. Higher amount of key tracking, even with the cutoff really low. We're hearing the high notes stick out. Or I could go the opposite way. Oops, not the envelope. It's kind of taking all those parallel chords, but because the filter's changing for higher, lower notes, we're hearing different notes stick out because the filter's opening up and closing up per note. All right, a lot of possibility and power just with that. You know, there I am talking about key tracking again. Let's lose the chord and get into the Microtuner. I'm gonna leave that one and let's open up another one. Audio effects after. Oh, wrong Microtuner. That's annoying. There's two. There it is. There's the new one. It's in the packs, not in the. There it is. So you hear how the notes just shifted, right? Let's get rid of that kick for a second. And it's stuck now. What just happened? So yeah, in order for this to work, you got to turn MPE off. Make the pitch bend here is 12. I have the pitch bend. here as 12. Right, so right now it's splitting up an octave into 5 different notes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then that's an octave. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you hear the octave above your C. Sounds a little, almost Middle Eastern, but it isn't. Right, so that's just a simple example of you're dividing an octave into 5 equal steps. Actually, they're not equal. It looks like wide, narrow, wide, narrow. You can kind of see how it gets divided up. Try. That's 7. That looks like 7. They're not all exactly the same, but pretty close. What does that sound like divided up again? Going up chromatically. Right? That's 7. Nice. There's 2 of these, right? 2 scales that you can have, A and B. A is set to 7. I'm going to go over to B, and that one's set to just 12. It's like it's a just tuning. It's a little bit different than what you typically hear in a chromatic scale. And if you click blend, then you can fade between the tunings. Which I think is really cool. Are there any other plugins, tuning plugins that let you do this? There must be something. There probably is something. You guys are talking about one of my old tracks with Christian? Oh, the Weather remixes. That was a good one. That was a big track for us. It's one of my favorites too. It's tough. All right. So that's what's going on here, is that you've got 2 different tunings that you can switch between. I haven't expanded on the available scales yet, but you can import scale files into this. It includes just a few examples, right? Divided into 5, 7, 9, just 12, which is close to what you're normally expecting, and then 16, which is giving you smaller spaces in between. And I haven't tried the generator yet. I've just been fooling around with the preset scales, the preset tunings. And I like this as a simple way of creating different vibe or tension in your track, going between 2 tunings. And whether it works musically or not, it's going to take some experimentation. And it also depends on the notes going in. Different notes are, higher and lower notes are going to get transposed to different pitches, or adjusted, not transposed, adjusted to different pitches in real time. So it's definitely going to take a little bit of experimentation. I also thought, all right, what does this sound like with chords? So now the polyphony, the voices and analog are kind of freaking out now because there's so many notes going on. I'm going to go back to my other instance. I think I liked this one a little bit better. Right, so you have this, or I could put the chord after the microtuner, and this is going to sound a little bit more musically together, because even though the melodic notes are on a different tuning, each time it plays a note, we're going to hear an identifiable chromatic triad. So it's going to be kind of a combo of this alternative tuning and what we're used to hearing. That's where I left it. This is sort of, all right, that's kind of cool. How are we doing for time? 1:54 already. Gosh, I'm getting lost in the wormhole of microtuning. Okay, jury's still out on that sound. I like this better as a track. All right, I have one more element playing around with alternative tuning. So shiny, bright, ringy. I love the sound of this. This is already cool, but it really is amazing with the alternative tuning. Hypnotizing. Let's hear what happens if I change the scale. These tiny little differences. It's like tweaking my brain. Like, what is going on with the pitch? I love it. I love it. Just the shifting between the different intervals is, you know, it's really cool how easy it is to do that with this thing. Definitely a lot of fun. Cool. This has been good. We have a winner. Congratulations to this week's giveaway winner for a free 343 Pro session of your choice, and you've got a lot to choose from coming up. Janina Jaukuri. So we're going to let you know how to collect your prize, and thanks for playing. Thanks for being here and checking out the stream today. Thanks to everyone, actually. It was a little deep and weird with the tuning, right? But I don't know. My interest is piqued. I think this is a cool device, and I'm also intrigued. I'm, going back to that article on Create Digital Music, and there's some if you're interested in this kind of thing and want to get a little deeper in it, get a little bit more of an explanation, some context, which I agree is very important in sort of understanding what's behind this type of situation, like what a plugin like this can do, and other tools out there that you can look into. Definitely check out this article on Create Digital Music. There's some good videos and references to other types of software that can do even more than what the Microtuner can do in live. But I'm pleased with this device and how easy and approachable it is to get started. So, nice one. Absent says, this music got me in a trance. I feel like I'm falling into the matrix of techno. Wait. Yes, I am also falling into the matrix of techno. Nice. Thanks so much, everybody. Really enjoyed this trip with microtuning today. Hope you guys did too. I will be back next week, an hour earlier than usual. So I don't know if you've got an alarm set or something, make sure you adjust it. We'll be on at 12 Eastern time instead of 1. And of course, we have all these great pro sessions coming up. We've got 343 Studio going on. We've got the Discord. Plenty of chances for you guys to get involved. So thanks again to everyone in the chat. I am out of here for today. Enjoy your week. Adios.